Here's some things that are crazy useful that nobody ever told you about budgeting. Alright, so here's everything no one ever told you about budgeting. Let's start right at the very beginning because that's exactly where people get messed up, right? Let's start with the difference between your fixed expenses and your discretionary expenses. Your fixed expenses, I like to think about them as your cost of living, right? This is where anything that you obtain during your lifetime has a cost to owning said thing. For example, your property taxes, your insurances, your utilities, all of that are based on the things you obtain just by the fact that you're alive working towards a goal. So ultimately, this is something that wouldn't change. It's a fixed cost, it's a fixed expense to be alive, to do the things you want to do. Look at your lifestyle and then identify your own specific fixed expenses. Now, the next thing you need to wrap your mind around is discretionary expenses. I like to think about these as the circumstances you were in or the choices you made, because you either find yourself in a situation where all of these things are around you and you have to take on that burden, or you find yourself making choices, small choices, little by little, which leads you to that point. So your discretionary expenses are things such as your bonds, your rent, your groceries, your car. So it's basically everything where you either made a choice to get that said thing, or you found yourself obligated to take care of something that is already there. So what ends up happening in some of the more common budgets is that they inevitably start to bleed, right? And people just don't understand where this bleed is coming from, but it's actually coming from fixed expenses that were not taken into account while they were making their budget. So they budgeted, yes, but they only included all their discretionary expenses. Just to illustrate how important this is, when you're buying a unit at a complex, for example, they show you what the levy is, they show you what the rates are. Once you have all of that, for some odd reason, I don't understand why, but that is not included in the rent, right? For some reason, when you're writing your budget, you tend to just write rent and then you write that X amount, 3,500, 4,000, right? But when we say 30% of your monthly salary should be going to rent, for example, right? That actually should include your levies and your rates, right? So it should be 30% all inclusive, not 30% plus levies, plus rates. This is where you end up bleeding, because you might be looking at your situation and say, okay, I'm within that 30%, but I wasn't including levies and taxes. Okay, where's that money gonna come from? And levies, every now and again, they can just spike them up for no reason. So you have to be very conscious about how much you're spending and how much it goes onto your budget. If you lie on your budget, you're lying to yourself. Lying to yourself is not good. All right, now that you know the difference between fixed expenses and discretionary expenses, it's time to find the budget for you, because no two budgets are made equal. How you do this is to first define the goal of your budget, because purposeless budgeting is the same as putting money inside your underwear for no reason, right? It doesn't make sense. Now you have to decide, is your budget to save? And if so, to save for what? You have to be very specific, because you can't just save for saving. If you're saving to have an emergency fund, that's the reason. You're saving to have an emergency fund. But once you have your emergency fund, what are you saving for? You always need to have a goal for your savings. Or is your budget to pay off debt? Or is your budget to invest in your business? Or is your budget to invest in yourself or invest in your future? Or are you just trying to get control of your finances and live below your means? You need to have a very clear picture about all of this, right? So you understand exactly what it is you're doing and whether or not that's even something you want. Because if it's something you don't want, your budget is gonna fail because you have no purpose for budgeting in the first place. You may as well just throw money away. It's that simple, because you clearly wanna throw money away. Be intentional about your finances, but also be fair to yourself, especially when it comes to budgeting. So one of the first things I like to do is identify my vices. Right? So your vices are effectively anything that is a money pit and a money drain for you. And then don't be stingy on yourself. Don't try to take that from 100 to 0. Just cut it by half. So whatever your vice is, that is effectively taking and stealing money out of your pocket, but it's not actually benefiting you in the long run, cut that out by 50%. Don't try to make drastic changes all at once, because that's a surefire way to fail. We can look at all these step-by-step processes on how to budget like a boss in a series if you guys are actually interested, in which I could post every Sunday so you're ready to take action on a Monday. Make sure you let me know in the comments below so I know if that's something that's worth my time, and also more importantly that's worth your time. I don't want to give you guys information that's irrelevant to you guys. Now, going back to actually budgeting with a purpose, there are 3 things you need to understand. What mode you're in. So are you in survival mode? Or are you in debt-free mode? Or are you in financially free mode? And budgeting for those phases is going to be completely different. If you're in survival mode, your main mission is just to put food on the table. All debts and all financial obligations are completely secondary. So you're not going to budget the same way somebody who's in debt-free mode is going to budget. That doesn't make sense. Now, when you're in survival mode, you find yourself living above your means, paycheck to paycheck. Now, this applies whether you're making 4,000 per month or you're making 40,000 a month, depending on your financial obligations. So while in survival mode, you could be in the exact same position while making 40,000 as a person just making 4, just by pure financial decisions alone. So how you begin budgeting in this survival mode, more so when you're leaning more towards the 4,000 rand. I hate to say it, but you actually need to make more money. It's that simple. It's very hard to then say you're gonna budget at this point in time. Now, don't get me wrong, you're gonna need to start your fundamentals right now. So whatever you can save, you still have to identify your fixed expenses versus your discretionary expenses, and then cut out on your discretionary expenses as much as possible. But anything you can save, even if it's just 10 rand, you need to go into a budget that is focused on savings. Then take those savings and invest them in yourself or in something that's going to create more income. Because at this point, you can't accept your situation. You can't just go for the once. That extra 10 rand that you're saving needs to go into creating more wealth for yourself. And your main priority is to just earn more money. It's that simple. A new job will help in this category as well, because that will allow you to actually have more income coming in if you have the opportunity to do so. So if you do have the opportunity to actually apply and possibly get a better job, maybe because you are skilled, they just underpaying you, do that. Continuously apply. Now, if you're not in survival mode, you should be in debt-free mode. What this means is you just have too many financial obligations and you need to be cutting down as much as you can when you can, right? So your budget should be focused on creating additional income so you can actually pay off high interest debt as a priority. Here's the thing. You don't have to worry about investing at this point in time. The best investment that you can do for yourself right now is to get out of those crippling debts. If you have the sort of debt where you absolutely cannot function or even think about what to do with your extra money because there is no extra, you need to get out of that debt. Investing won't help you here. And then moving to the last type of budget, which is your financially free budget. Now here, it's a bit different. In this budget, you don't have to rigorously track everything, right? Every little thing that comes in, every little thing that goes out. No, you don't have to do that. You're already at a certain point where you're living below your means, right? So by definition, you already have excess income and you're just wondering what to do with the income because it ends up disappearing on useless things. This is a good place to be because right now, all you're thinking about is the ratio of your portfolio. So it's how much do I put into investing in myself? How much do I put into investing into my future? How much do I put into investing in this or knocking out the last of that debt, right? Or whatever the case may be, you're in a really good position where you're earning enough, but at the same time, you don't know what to do with said money. This is the point where you can actually start generating wealth. So at this point, you probably already have your emergency fund ready, or you need to start one. Your savings accounts are very specific. So you're saving for that trip, or you're saving for that cool drone that you've always wanted. So at this point, your savings are purely for delayed gratification. So on the financially free budget, it's actually one of the easiest ones because you have more to play around with. So I won't go too deep into that. I'll throw in an honorable mention. And it doesn't fall in on the things they actually never told you about budgeting, but I will mention it because this is where you're trying to budget just so you can live within your means. Now, you can imagine there's a purpose here. The purpose is to live within your means, but I don't think this is sufficient enough. So I think you need to be very specific. You have to be very intentional about your finances. I keep repeating this because it's so true. When you just want to live within your means, that means you're not creating anything. You're not creating wealth. You're not creating freedom for yourself. You're not creating just peace of mind. Okay, you might be creating peace of mind, but within your means still has this element of you still living paycheck to paycheck. It still has this thing where you're not generating, you're not making your money work for you, which I don't like that. I don't like that entire concept of it. That's why I'm gonna leave it here as an honorable mention, because I know a lot of people do like to budget that way, but I would highly suggest you use one of the 3 budgeting methods up top so you can be very specific. Remove this unwritten rule of money is taboo. I know in South Africa it's just a weird thing where you can't really discuss money with your friends, right? You can't discuss exact amounts with your coworkers. There's this instilled thing within us where we feel that if people know how much money I make or I don't make, it's gonna directly affect my self-worth in some false sense of the word. I don't know. Listen, if you're in a group of friends and you guys are close friends and you all know how much you guys make, right? The person who makes the most can tell you how they got there, and then everybody can elevate themselves to get to that point. But if you guys are hush-hush about everything, it doesn't make much sense on how you're actually gonna get to financial freedom. How are you gonna make more? You know how they always say surround yourself with people smarter than you, people who are more financially savvy than you. The reason for that is because you end up taking on some of their traits as well as some of their business know-how, right? They can put you on, and then when you're at a good position, you can then put them on alternatively. So you should always be striving to have these conversations with some of your close friends and family. I don't mean just tell everybody, right? That's private information in some sense of the word. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. I think I have around 8 new subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you so much for subscribing. Please go ahead and share the link to someone you think is gonna find this information valuable. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.